Welcome to Local Omaha. I'm Ken Bartholomew.
And I'm Kelsey Wiedel.
With each program, we bring business owners, community leaders, nonprofits, and entrepreneurs. And Kelsey, this week
I'm so excited to welcome Talia McGill. Thanks for joining us, Talia.
Welcome.
So you are the president and CEO of No More Empty Pots.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so about me, I'm born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a North High graduate, UNO graduate, and Bellevue graduate. Omaha has been my home for a really, really long time. My family were transplants from Maryland in the Air Force, and they decided to stay, and I've been lucky to be here ever since.
Cool, that's awesome. Well, so you are here representing No More Empty Pots. Tell us a little bit about the organization and how you got involved with them.
Yes, so No More Empty Pots, it's a grassroots nonprofit located in North Omaha, specifically in the Florence neighborhood. And it started in 2010, and really what we try to do is leverage local food so that people, the environment, the economy thrive. And we think about it really in three main areas: through community health, community education, and economic and workforce development. And if you really think about it, right, we as humans, something we all need is food. And it's one thing that can bring us together, but also it's something that we don't all have the same opportunity and access to. And so our organization tries to look at that more holistically. And it's not just about feeding a person, but making sure they can work and buy the things that they want to have for choice, or use food to make their own businesses. Skill sets, developing skill sets and self-sufficiency is a huge component of what makes this whole thing work.
That's so cool. I think that, I know a little bit about Empty Pots, but I think a lot of people might not realize the scope of what you guys do. You know, it's not just about feeding the community or making food accessible, but also making that systemically more a part of the process, which is really cool.
Well, so with the locations that you have, if I'm coming to the location, what do I see when I walk inside? Or can you give us a visual of exactly what someone might expect?
So in any of our locations, or even if you were to engage with our team offsite somewhere, let's say a community center or something like that, our goal is always to demonstrate the whole food system. So we're talking about how fruit is grown and where it comes from, to processing or using it in programming, to feeding, to the reuse and recycle and the waste disposal of food. And so in our food hub, for example, you may see us receiving produce from local farms, taking that produce and then using it in youth culinary programming, or we might use it in our food access programs. You'll see several commercial kitchens in which we use for that, but we also rent that to start up food businesses. And all those things are stored and disposed of, whether it be compost. We work with Hillside Solutions to do our recycling, and so then we get it back out the door that way as well. So it could be, you could be enjoying a cup of coffee, you could be coming to a workshop, you could be supporting and volunteering and helping a food business get catering out for the day. There's a number of ways that that one facility operates in terms of how it's using food for the day.
Wow, that's so cool. I had no idea that you did such a wide variety out of your different locations. And I think I'd seen even a community cooking class or something that people have done there. I feel like we see you guys everywhere. We've got people talking about pollinating and growing a garden out at Lawrence, and you do a lot of in the community outreach. Yes. How do you find in the community, how do you identify areas that may need more outreach at the time, or how do you know where to go, where you're going to reach the people that need you the most?
I think it's multifaceted. So in one way, we're very grassroots. So word of mouth is everything. So even this opportunity here could turn you into a volunteer. You might go home and say, man, I learned about this random thing called No More Empty Pots, and everybody's just curious. So there is a good amount of it that just comes from curiosity. So people will seek us out via social media, or they'll come to our website and just ask general questions like, what is this? How do I get involved? We also partner with a lot of other community organizations. So you mentioned Lawrence and Gardens, right? They are ag focused. And in thinking about how we care for the environment, a lot of the things that we're teaching in our STEM courses directly correlates to the same type of work that they want to do. And so we will partner with organizations, again, that are looking at education, health, or workforce and economic development. So thinking big picture, we even work with health systems like UNMC, CHI, those types of things. So we even get one-to-one patient engagement through some of their initiatives with their community health needs assessment, for example, where they are looking at food as a way to help combat chronic disease and illness. And so that's a very unique avenue in which we find it. But then we also believe being in a nonprofit is twofold. You have to really be diversified. So there is a part of our business in which we are supporting others who may not have the ability to engage with our programs, but we create our products and services in a way that we want it to feel equitable for everyone. So let's say you can buy the $500 A5 Wagyu. We want also a person who can't buy it to have that same experience. So there are many people who are customers for us that spread from Bennington, Gretna, Elkhorn, Council Bluffs, and Bellevue, all around. So it's a mixture of both those who need and those who don't. And we leverage those two relationships to make sure that everybody's getting kind of the same experience. So that's a number of ways that people usually find out about us. In my personal life, I'm also in the fitness and wellness space. So I leverage that as well to get people involved because food and fitness definitely go hand in hand.
That's so interesting. We've definitely experienced this. We hadn't talked about this previously, but we worked together in Ken's gym for 6 years.
Oh,
and that was such
you have a gym?
Yeah.
I did have a gym.
Yeah.
Perks my ears.
So that was one of the huge things that actually got into that because I was involved with Empty Pots, but it's such a relationship, especially in areas like where we were, and I'm sure you've seen this, we were talking about food deserts and how access to healthy food is very difficult for some rural areas, but also some of these in-town areas that we have no idea. There are these pockets that don't have access to healthy food or affordable food or transportation to acquire healthy food.
Correct.
Is that something that you're still experiencing right now?
100%. We work both urban and rural, and there are a lot of initiatives right now through the state that are looking to solve rural food insecurity. We try to approach it both on an individual level, so households, but then also institutions. So we're thinking schools, hospitals, other ways that we can be infusing the healthy foods. And we specifically use that niche of local. Two reasons. One, when you get food that is closer to home, it's more nutrient dense. So when we're thinking about health improvement, being able to get a zucchini from Nebraska versus a zucchini from California, you're already going to benefit even more. And on top of that, then that zucchini, you're now economically helping a family that lives down the street or a couple miles away. And in the food deserts that we have, if we think really back to the beginning times, everybody shared with each other. Communities were much smaller. Everybody had their own garden. I have tomatoes, you have potatoes, let's do a trade. And so trying to think about how can we build smaller pockets maybe, because from a business standpoint, I think we're seeing grocery store chains leave for a number of reasons that are mostly due to bottom line, not because there aren't enough consumers. And so if we take that out of the picture, we create pockets of community food. I think that is the way that we kind of help combat transportation issues, the affordability issues. In today's world, your backyard could get a USDA farm number and you could sell a pound of tomatoes. And make yourself legitimate. And so it could be that easy. I think there aren't good margins in grocery.
Right.
And so, any loss feels really, really huge. And when you deal with that and maybe you deal with other nuisances in the store, it's really hard to keep them open. So I think we have to take a different approach, and maybe large grocery stores aren't the solution, but maybe more of smaller stores or family-owned stores or independent chains would be a better way to have long-term change, both urban and rural. And I don't know if you heard, but Heart Ministry is going to be opening a grocery store on basically 25th and Lake. And that's going to be really exciting because it's going to be owned by a nonprofit. And I think it has an opportunity to build this kind of community around food like I'm talking about, without the same concerns that a big box store might have, but be able to serve a large number of people. So it is part of the conversation that's happening. It continues to happen. In terms of the rural access, a lot of the conversations I'm in is how do we just get the food to them? Because the food does exist. So looking at partnering with logistics change and backhauling or things like that. So getting creative about how to get the food to the people.
That is creative. I never even thought,
I think that's why I find No More Empty Pots and your job so fascinating.
Right.
You guys really go on. First of all, you cover so many aspects, but you go so in depth and tackle, I feel like, issues that some people might not even know are existing. And it's kind of like you said, a holistic approach. I mean, you really can't have good health without good fuel and good nutrition. And are you finding that educating people on that is part of the process? Do you feel like the people that you come to are already kind of in the know? How's the health literacy of the people that are coming to you?
It's a challenge. When I think about education in the space of food, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One, we know that a lot of people use pantries, for example, and what's there is there, but it doesn't always take into consideration people's cultural norms. Let's say I'm an immigrant or a new refugee to this country. We don't drink milk, maybe. And everything in the pantry is dairy-based. Even though I may be able to get this at no cost, I can't really give it to my family. It'll make me sick. So there's education both on the consumer side and then on the provider side of how do we make it inclusive and not just accessible. And then sometimes we also, we'll give people things and they don't know how to cook it, or they don't have the tools at home. Maybe they only have a microwave, they don't have a stove, or they don't have a good knife. I mean, even myself, I was well into adulthood before I realized don't cut a tomato with a steak knife. But that's just like all we had in the house.
I feel like everybody goes through that as you grow or as you move throughout different socioeconomic groups. You're thinking, this is what it's not like to have a nice pan for once,
100%.
Right.
We take those things for granted. And so our educational programs focus on even the really, really small things that you might think everyone knows, but in reality, they don't. Some people have never seen some of the things that you and I may have cooked with. So it's providing supplies and equipment. It's providing food that people will eat, asking them for their input more than just always making it available. Of course, when it's an emergency and it's a crisis, anything is better than nothing. But how long can you go on like that? We wouldn't expect our mother or our family to do that. So, we have to make concerted effort to try to make it something that everyone can engage in. From the health perspective, there's a lot of habits to change, and that's with anybody trying to get healthy, right?
Right.
Learning, portion sizes, learning about good fats, good carbs,
Right.
switching things out. So I think one approach we take often is the swap, right? Okay, still eat what you love. You want pizza? We'll have pizza,
Right.
but maybe switch this out or switch this out. Not only do we focus on using seasonal things because they're tasty, but also they're more cost effective in the store because they're in abundance. So even going to how can you shop differently, stretch your budget, preserve what you're getting. So maybe you buy this in excess right now because it's 10 cents a pound, but then you got to do something with it. So can you can it? Can you freeze it? What do you need to do that? And even sometimes we'll have workshops in which bring your things and we'll use the vacuum sealer while you're here because most people don't have that at home. But it could save them hundreds and hundreds of dollars over time. And so there's such a spectrum of things to learn in terms of food and health and making that dollar go.
I'm so glad that you touched on that because I feel like we don't realize sometimes, especially here, like, unfortunately, ranch is part of our Midwest culture, and food is so ingrained in your culture. So changing your eating habits that's different from your family and growing up in your culture can be so difficult, but you may not know where to turn as well. And providing those resources can be, I feel
like you said too, it's the nutritional value of the items as well. So you might be able to get something in bulk or whatever the case, if you're looking at something that has a 3-year shelf life.
How does it do that?
Right. So, but you know, it's crazy though, because my wife and I have been talking about that a lot lately about, I mean, just everything from drinking out of plastic bottles to what's actually in the food that we're purchasing. And I remember, you know, so I'll bring home a loaf of bread or whatever, like, and she's like, you know, like that has more than 3 ingredients. I'm like, they all do. It's like 40.
Even the bread I get has 3.
Well, no, I know, but that's what I'm saying
It's
so it goes back to what you were saying. Now, the one that's the most affordable is the one that has the laundry list of stuff in it, or additives or fillers or whatever the case may be, but preservatives. But and then as you get pricier, now all of a sudden it's like, well, sure, I can spend $6 to get this one that has 3 ingredients or 4 ingredients, but then, so you reach for that other option, and then you're back to the nutritional value of what you're actually.
And you also have to have a method to keep that bread cold and cool, like a refrigerator, because non-preserved food goes bad fast.
Yep.
And that's just not an option.
And then you have to be able to access it more frequently as well too, which then that comes back to. So I noticed through, you know, some of our research and some of our conversation that Kelsey and I talked about this a lot, and I've always had a business career, that kind of thing, but the root cause of things. So it's like, go into the root cause. I mean, there's symptoms, things like that, but you guys really address the root cause. Is that a fair way of?
Yeah, I would say that's our approach to everything. It might not be our entry point, but once we get into a space, then we try to, you know, work it backwards and say, okay, if this is where we find ourselves, how did we get here? And that's why I brought up, like, think about when it was the 1500s and we had small communities. We weren't always this way. Something happened along the way. And of course, you know, unfortunately, is very systemic. So we as one organization, we will not be able to change the world, but we may be able to change habits, change minds on a small scale. And in these pockets of communities, the more people thinking about it, considering it, they'll make shifts, small shifts that matter. And as with anything, volume makes more things possible. So if we can scale the idea, scale the movement, it would make it easier and more accessible for the majority.
That's so cool. I just love everything you're doing. So how are you able to identify, there may be more broad spectrum things that you can address, like I feel like as we've modernized, we've lost, like you were talking about, preservation methods, and that may impact a large amount of community. But then you've also got these pockets of, like you said, immigrant populations who may not have ever seen a zucchini before and aren't familiar with how to cook those. How do you identify which issues to tackle and when is the best time to do that? And then get in touch with those communities. I mean, you do so much. How are you narrowing down to be the most effective and efficient?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is partner interest first. So some of those organizations will come to us and say, we're seeing this in our community. We try to let people inform us versus us assume what people need. So oftentimes they will come and say, we're working with this group of people. We're noticing they don't have this skill, or they would like to learn. They're saying they don't know. Is this something you do? And a lot of times, things that we already have planned can plug right in. But there are some times where, excuse me, we need to build custom programming to make sure it fits. Because what we don't want to do is tell you what you need to do. We want to learn what works for you and then build our programming around that. There are a lot of initiatives, I think, just at a large scale throughout the city in terms of health needs that are having higher level people think about how they're entering into the community spaces and getting more people access to the things that they need, whether it be the food itself or the education. And the other beautiful part about that is sometimes they teach us. So, you know, a lot of times people who come to this country, where they're from, they are farmers, they are makers. And so we have to also be open to learning what they know, and we will then incorporate that into our programming going forward too. So it's kind of a win-win. In terms of prioritizing, right now I'm really, really pushing for food as medicine initiatives in any form. I know just for me growing up in like a single parent household, food was used for 2 things. It's like, we don't have all the things we need, eat this pot of spaghetti, or also you've got a game today, eat this pot of spaghetti. I feel like everything was in a pot. We didn't have the time to really sit and at the table and eat and do the socializing around it too. And so I'm really looking at anybody who's into initiatives, not only to get away from just the pot of spaghetti, but like what's actually going to fuel us. How do we get it around the table, so to speak? What's the social aspects around getting healthy through food? Because I think that's it. It's spending time together as a part of the process. I don't know if you guys ever cook with your loved ones, but it's way different than just the heat and eat. And I think that's the way that we learn what is priority, because we're communicating while doing a thing. Right now, it's really cool. I'm excited. We're in a medically tailored meals pilot. So we were already making prepared meals that you could heat and eat from the local produce, but now we're getting it certified by dietitians and piloting this with CHI.
Wow.
So we'll get to see if we can truly create something that is culturally relevant, easy to eat, and also accessible and affordable, that is made specifically to help you improve your health. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to the doctor and they're like, you need to change your diet, and here's the list, and here's the My Plate, and then you get home and it's like, I don't have anything in the pantry. I don't even know what that is. I don't know where to get it. What we would love to see is they say, oh my gosh, you need a cardiac diet. Go to No More Empty Pots. Get anything with a blue label and stick it in the microwave.
That's so
You could freeze it if you need to. Like, we want to make it simple to get healthier. So that's one thing we're working on right now. That's a huge priority, because that will reach the masses in terms of the connection through the healthcare system to a plethora of people.
I love that you touched on not only health literacy and important information from your doctor, but also that you talked about the cultural shifts and changes and making that important part of the process, because I don't feel like it's going to be a systemic change if you're just throwing information at them. But if you're giving them these resources, it sounds like it's much more accessible for these communities. And I don't want to rush you, but I want to ask you a million questions, and I don't want to run out of time. So please tell us about your upcoming events. So maybe if people are interested in getting involved, they can.
We have a ton of
find
events. So the ways you can get involved with them, you can attend through tickets. Some are open to public. You can sponsor if you want to sponsor. And we're always looking for volunteers. So our first upcoming event is in July 18th. We have a supper club, which is really cool. It's held on our rooftop garden at the Food Hub location in Florence. And really what it's designed to do is elevate one of the local food businesses that is renting our commissary kitchens. And so we'll have a meal together with other community members. We'll have entertainment. It's just a really good night out. The space is beautiful. You get to see the night sky from the roof, be in with the plants. So in our rooftop garden, we actually grow things there, not just to be pretty, but also to pull right out and eat, to use in our programming. And so you'll get that real-time experience. So we have that on July 18th. We have another one in September. And then in August, we have our garden walk, which is really exciting. It's an opportunity to go throughout North Omaha and look at all the garden spaces. So we will have programming going on in our building that day, as well as more entertainment. I believe I'm in a band outside of work, and I've been requested to play music that day. So you'll see me in my other zone. But that's another really exciting one. And then Open Omaha. We participate in that every year, and that is also in August. So we'll have workshops going on. The cafe will be open during that time. We'll have goodie bags and vendors and things like that. So all of those things can be found on our website. Social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Eventbrite.
Very cool. So go over, is it nomoreemptypots.com?
nmepomaha.org.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm so glad you said that, because I get it wrong every time.
If you Google it, it'll come.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, based upon your objectives and where a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, if we could flash forward to like 5 years from now, what would 5 years from now look like if everything that you'd like to achieve is actually accomplished? What would that look like?
I think a huge part of it would just having people be empowered. Have the ability to choose what they want to eat, to go to the store and, not have to think about you know, I only have this much, and so I have to get the nasty bread with 20 ingredients.
Right.
I can get the thing I want because I can, and I don't have to worry. So like that would be a huge part, and that's going to look different for every individual, for every household. I would love to see more people come together around food. I think there's so many things happening in the world right now that are saying we need to be pulled apart, but we all have to eat. And I feel like no one can argue that.
Right.
So how can we find more meaningful ways to come together and let food be a way that we stop being so distant and divided, but find the things that are commonalities, because I think that'll make our communities stronger while also feeding people who need to be fed. And then I think the third part is just seeing more people be mobile and healthy. So, you know, maybe if you had a chronic illness or chronic disease like heart health, and you were bedridden or mostly in a chair, taking some steps. Can you walk around the block? Like those small things that you're doing because you've made some really small improvements that maybe didn't break the bank. Maybe they're not hospital stays. Maybe you were just able to change your diet a little bit in a way that worked for you, and now you can walk around the block. I think we could talk about the really big, huge change, but again, we can't do that by ourselves. And so I think seeing that individual person change, that family change, that household change, that business's mindset and how they engage with people, I think that's where it's at for our
You know, Kelsey and I would talk about that at the gym too, when you just saw that specific individual or that person that came in. You know, when somebody came in to join or whatever, they, I mean, I'll say they had a problem or a goal actually or something, but
I always think about the guy who his main goal was to stand up as Harley.
Yeah,
so he'd been
they're
through
heavy.
some health issues and some concerns and things like that, and he couldn't ride his motorcycle anymore, and his goal was to get strong enough to do that. And it's really cool to see when they've achieved that.
Which may seem like a small goal, but to that person is a huge goal. A huge, you're talking about huge life changes for people. I also love that you talked about food bringing people together, because one of my favorite things on social media right now is seeing everybody come for the World Cup and watching them experience our food and culture for the first time.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, I hate to do this, but one of the things that happens to us is that we run out of time.
We're chatty. Yeah.
So, yeah, so,
Thank
wow.
you so much for
Great
joining
education.
us.
Thanks so much
Yeah.
for coming to
It's a lot.
visit.
Yeah,
And
you're
you can find them online. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you next time.